Samuel chapter 15. Let's start in verse 3, okay? So I want to use an account out of Saul's, an experience in Saul's life. And there are several experiences, and I'm thinking about just giving a little review here. So Saul was the first king of Israel, the first one that God chose to lead the nation. And so God gives Saul a command in verse 3, and he says, "Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." So God is basically, what happened was the Amalekites had kind of done Israel wrong earlier on, and it's kind of like payday. It's coming back. And so now that Israel has kind of established itself and has an army and is able now to go and make war and do battle, God wanted them to go and basically repay the Amalekites for what they had actually done to them several years earlier. And so the command is very clear, and that's why I want to first focus on this. Basically, the command is this: go and utterly destroy everything. So basically, if it is breathing, it is to be destroyed. Okay? Clear command. Now, in verse 8, let's skip down a little bit. It says that they did go out and they did kill. And then in verse 8 it said, "He also, though, took king of the Amalekites alive and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwillingly to utterly destroy them. But everything despised and worthless, that they utterly destroyed." So here it is. He gets a very clear command. "Saul, we want you to do this." Saul goes out to carry out the mission, and he destroys everything but the king and the things that are good. But the things that weren't good, he went ahead and destroyed them. Now, verse 10, as we're kind of moving forward, laying the groundwork here. "Now the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I greatly regret that I have set up Saul as king, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed the commandments." Okay, so this is the Lord's perspective. Saul goes out on the mission, partially completes the mission, and this is God's perspective. "I greatly regret that I've set Saul up as king. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried out to the Lord all night. So when Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Saul, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul went to Carmel, and indeed he set up a monument for himself, and he has gone on around, passed by, and gone down to Gilgal." Okay, so here's what Saul is doing. Saul is excited about what took place. He's very happy about it. So much so that he sets up a monument to himself. So we have two perspectives already. We have God's perspective of the situation, where God regrets that he even made Saul king. And we have Saul's perspective of what took place, so much so that he is setting up a monument to himself, a memorial. Maybe it says something like this: "What a great victory was performed here today." Now, the thing about it is, where we're kind of moving into this area of conviction, is you can kind of see where sometimes we're blind to ourselves because we're not seeing things quite as God's seeing things, right? I mean, as a matter of fact, we're seeing things sometimes just the opposite. We're thinking things are going well. From God's perspective, things are not going that well. Now, let's carry on again in verse 13. "Then Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, Blessed are you of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord." Now, I don't think Saul was trying to lie. I don't even think Saul was trying to deceive. I think Saul actually felt in his heart that he had fully carried out the command of the Lord. Remember last week I said this, it's not the fact that people sin that bothers people. I mean, that's not it. Everybody sins. Everybody fails. I mean, that's a given in varying degrees. Some very, sometimes minimal, but sometimes maximum. That's not the issue. Everybody has sinned, right? And fallen short of the glory of God. No one's perfect. Everybody does things. But that's not really what concerns me. What concerns me is that people can sin and disobey and not have any emotional consequences attached to that sin. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they are disobeying, but in their mind, they're doing great. In other words, there's such a lack of conviction, a lack of some form of emotional anxiety or trouble or guilt or shame that literally they just walk through life thinking they're doing great, but really in God's mind, they're actually walking in rebellion. And look how he greets Samuel. Blessed be the name of the Lord. I mean, he's even given the what we would call the blessing of a covenant people. Have you noticed, like in Christianity, sometimes we got all these Christian cliches. You know what I'm saying? No greater than the thing to be blessed, or I'm walking victorious. I mean, we got all these cliches. That kind of reminds me of Saul. He's into the blessed be the name of the Lord, given the hey, God is real. God, I'm a covenant people. And he says, I've carried out the command of the Lord. But this is what Samuel said. What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears? In other words, I'm hearing the sound of sheep, Saul, and I'm hearing the lowing of the oxen. Okay? In other words, you're saying you have carried out the command of the Lord, but I'm hearing something different. Okay? I'm hearing something different. The story you remember I told last week was, how after I became a Christian and was going to Bible school and was, going to kind of moving into a different dimension of my life of ministry. And I can tell you something, that 20-year-old, that year of when I was 20 was probably one of the years that some of the greatest, most significant changes happened in my life. I mean, I went from one person to another person in my 20s. I mean, when I left Tucson, my music changed immediately. What I watched changed immediately. I didn't go out. Honestly, alcohol did not touch my lips for the next 15 years. It didn't from when I was 20, the greatest changes in my life took place. It wasn't that I was not a Christian, but it was the moment where Christ basically said, this is the moment, all right? You're coming in, right? And so I made a tremendous amount of changes, left my friends, left an apartment. I felt like I made sacrifices. I told you the only thing that I really brought with me when I went to go to Bible school is I brought my dart board. I thought I'd want to play darts. I never played it again. And I brought my stereo, and it was stolen the first week, okay? It was almost as though the Lord is saying, look, I told you to leave everything, okay? But so I would look at that time in my life, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking, man, I'm making great progress. This is the way I was living. You're not there to see how I was living. I was trying to read the Word. I started listening to worship music. I started praying. The change was starting to take place, but there were some very definitive life changes taking place in my life. So I feel like it's kind of like a Saul here, okay? I'm like, but then I get to school, but I still smoke marijuana. So it's almost like me saying this, hey, blessed be the name of the Lord. I'm carried out the command. I left my home. I left my friends. I'm moving into ministry. And it's almost like God is saying this, yeah, but what is this? What's that, John? What's the bleating of the sheep here? In my mind, I'm making great headway. In God's mind, I'm refusing to fully surrender. And he wasn't wanting partial surrender. He was wanting full surrender. And I remember I was probably even setting up a monument to myself. I probably was, man. I got to be honest with you. I remember one day I'm driving down after Bible school. I was going down I-14 out of Dallas. And I got to be honest with you. I was 20 years old, but I'm thinking, man, I'm really doing good. I'm a great guy. I'm telling you, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe not those exact words. But I was thinking about, wow, John, you're really something. And I can tell you something. Right when I was thinking that, I'm not kidding, a car pulled right out in front of me, and I T-boned it. and my head hit the glass, and the first word that proceeded out of my mouth was not, "Blessed be the God of Israel." It was a word I don't even use and never really use except when I was in 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? It was a profound profanity. And it was so amazing because I'm sitting there, man, John, you're really moving on. Pow, holy, you know what I'm saying? It was just almost like the Lord showing me, quit setting up monuments to yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're not there yet, right? You're just not there yet. You're not fully surrendered. But look what happens here. So Samuel said, look, let me make this statement. You might as well get this. Partial obedience results in total defeat. Okay? Just realize that. But then there's something else that we go about. And I've mentioned this before in the past. There's this idea called the snare of a step in the right direction. I read this like 25 years ago. I was reading an article. It was so profound, it just always remember. It's called the snare of a step in the right direction. And the idea is this, that your conscience is bothering you. Maybe you feel a conviction to do something. Or maybe God is wanting you to do something and maybe you're a little reluctant to do it. But what happens is you take a step in the right direction. Like maybe God is saying something like this. Hey, you know what? You need to reconcile with this person. Ah, man, I don't know if I want them. No, you need to reconcile. You need to call them and reconcile. I'm going to use an example like this, okay? You struggle with it. You struggle with it for days. And finally, you pick up the phone. You dial the number. And to your joy, you get the answering machine, okay? But you feel so good about it because you did. You took a step. You were going to reconcile. You made the effort. You had the intention to do so. But you can't control the other line, and you got the answer machine. And therefore, because you took a step, your conscience is relieved now. You no longer feel that shame or that conviction to have to carry out something. You ever felt that? I mean, you take one step, and God relieves you from the burden. But the thing is, He didn't relieve you from the burden so you could just go halfway. He just relieved you from the burden because that's His grace. Amen? But you still got to carry it out, right? Even though your conscience is not driving you. So here it is. So Saul said, look, now, so he challenges them, and look what Saul said. They, speaking of the people, have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but the rest we have utterly destroyed. Now notice that. That's one of those classic, the end does not justify the means, right? I mean, look, now that sounds good, though. I mean, look, now there's two things that happened here. Number one, he deflected it and made it the people's problem, right? They did it. I mean, the command came to Saul, but now he's making an excuse that others have done this thing. He's just at the mercy of others. And what does he say? But the good news is this, it's all for Jesus anyway, right? It's all for Him. I mean, if I win the lotto, there's nothing wrong with gambling. In fact, if I do win, I'll tithe. How's that? You know, I've heard people say that. I mean, they got gambling addictions, but the way they justify it is they're going to tithe if they win the big O, right? I can't even tell you how many times over 20-something years since the lotto started, how many people are telling me they're going to pay if they win the big one. I guess in their mind, it justifies it. And the shocking thing is they don't give other than that. And I'm going to tell you something. If you don't give other than that, you're not giving when you win the big one, okay? I'm just going to tell you that. It's much easier to give $1 out of $10 than to give $1 million out of $10 million. I will tell you that. That's a fact, right? So we justify it. Well, I mean, you know, we got to, even in people that live together for their marriage, it's amazing how, you know, they justify it. The things that they say, well, you know, we got to get to know each other. You know, we don't want to get together and then get divorced. I mean, it's amazing how we justify our behaviors. That's what Saul's doing. He's blaming others, but at the same time, he's justifying their behavior as well. It's all for the good. Don't worry about it, Samuel, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Verse 20 says this, and Saul said to Samuel, but I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and I've gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and brought back the king of Amalekite, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Now, I want to make a comment about this one. Notice, even though he has been confronted, even though Samuel has now brought him into an account, Saul is so blind to his sin. He is so blind to his rebellion. He is so blind to his own stubbornness that he is still convinced that he has done what God told him, and then in his same breath contradicts himself and said, but I did spare the king of Amalek. Can I tell you something? This is just a point. This is not the point of the message. Sin causes you to live in contradiction, right? I mean, it does. I mean, in one way, you're saying you're doing this, but sin basically causes you to live a double life, right? So on one hand, he's saying, yeah, I did this. I obeyed completely, but I did spare the king. But look what he said here. But the people took the plunder. The people did. Now, can I tell you something? Defense, that's the first defense mechanism of people, honestly, is to always blame other people. You know that? It really is. I mean, when Adam gets caught, he does what? Well, he blames Eve, right? When she gets caught, she blames the serpent. When the serpent gets caught, he can't blame anybody, right? But everybody else is passing the buck down. It's our first defense mechanism. It's somehow we justify because of other people. I mean, here's the thing. It's amazing to me there are clear commands in the Lord. Now, there may be some things that we can debate. I agree, okay? Let me give you one. We may debate to be able to, should a Christian drink or not. That's something we could talk about. And we probably could argue that till Jesus comes. But one thing that's clear is that Christians can't be drunk. That's a clear statement. There's no debate in that. Whether you have a beer or not, we can debate that. But being drunk is clear, right? That is a given. So drunkenness must be okay, though, in Christianity, because so many Christians get drunk, right? It must be okay, because so many Christians actually do that. We may debate how much you should give. Well, should you tithe? Should you not tithe? Should you give it all? Should you give a little? We may debate that all the time. But one thing we don't debate is giving in general, right? The Scripture is clear on that. You are to be a giver. We can debate how much you ought to give, but we don't debate whether you should give, right? But obviously, it's okay not to give because about 60% of Christians don't give, right? But I'm going to assure you, they can justify whatever it is. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to ladies over the course, mostly ladies, not men, who have come to me and said, man, I would really like to give, but my husband is not for it. He's the breadwinner. It's not, I want to hear what I'm saying. She comes to me. I would love to, but my husband's not for it. And he's the one that works. He's the one that works. Okay? Now, any other moment, I can guarantee you, if he said, all this money's mine and not yours, I guarantee you that woman would have said something like, hey, I'm going to tell you something. It's just as much mine as it is yours. Right? He'd say that. But it's amazing when it comes to giving, how many women all of a sudden become the submissive wife. I mean, they buck up. Hey, you ain't telling me what to do. I'm not going to be the doormat. Hey, we're a co-equal in this relationship. But when it comes to him telling you not to give, oh, yes, but I got to be submissive. He is the head of the home. But you see what I'm saying? But see, here's the thing. That's because it's not in her heart. It's not in her heart to do it. So she deflects it and says, I wouldn't be stingy and selfish, but it's my husband that's causing me to be this way. Are you with me? I mean, the one thing I like to hear about money, I hate to talk about money, but it's such a great indicator. Is when all they think about, all they want is my money. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that over 30 years. I'm going to tell you something. When people go into Walmart, I don't hear them say, oh, God, all Sam Walton wants is my money. It's a given, isn't it? He wants your money, right? We go to Pawpaw's. We don't complain the fact that they want your money. So what are you saying? Well, that's not, we're talking differently, John, because you get something there. So that is the issue. You only give when you get, right? There's no sacrificial giving. If I can get a return on my giving, then I'm going to give. Are you with me? But we justify it, just like Saul did. You know, we make all kinds of excuses. We blame people. We blame my wife's spending habits. We blame this. We blame my kid. We got to blame everybody because that's the deception of it. The sin is in Saul, right? He's the one. Look what happened here. Now look what he says here. He said, look, but the people, they took the plunder. to sacrifice to the Lord. And here's what Samuel said. Now I want you to see this. He said, look, Saul, does the Lord delight in offerings and sacrifices? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of lambs. Now here it is. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as the iniquity of idolatry. And because you have rejected the Lord, the word of the Lord, he also has rejected you from being king. Now, I want to show you something here before I make a comment. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord. Now notice this, your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Now at first, you might think finally Saul has the light bulb has come on for him. But notice, he only became sorry now because Samuel just told him that God just fired him, right? You're fired. God's rejected you. But notice, look what he says. Why did he say he was sorry? And why did he disobey? Because I feared the people. But what did Samuel say was the problem? He said, Saul, it is your stubbornness, it's like idolatry, and it is your rebellion, it's like witchcraft. That's why you didn't obey the Lord. Saul was trying to deflect it again and put it on something that was not there. He didn't say, well, Saul, you should have been a little bit more courageous against the people. He didn't go for that direction. He said, Saul, your issue is you're stubborn because, I'm going to tell you something, stubbornness is idolatry because it is the exaltation of oneself, which is the worst form of idolatry. Are you with me? It's the worst form. Now, you think you're just being stubborn. Well, you don't want to carry out the trash, or you don't want to do this. But I'm going to tell you something. Stubbornness is the exaltation of a person's will over God's will, right? That's idolatry. It's not wood, hay, and knickknacks and things. It's your will that's the issue. It's a battle against God's will. Are you with me? So Saul still hasn't come to the belief that his behaviors are wrong. He is still justifying his behaviors. He still thinks that his issues are not really an issue. Amen? I mean, it's amazing what we justify. We justify what we watch. I mean, I can't even tell you, it was a couple of months ago, it was telling about this one, and I'm not judging, but I'm going to say something about it. You got to have a real illustration, right? I'm watching this deal about a pastor. I was telling about some cool pastor, and one of the things he liked, Ben, is he really liked Game of Thrones, okay? Now, here's the thing. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. But why? I mean, I've seen things that are bad. Don't get me wrong. But I've never seen that one. But here's what I was told. Here's what Jory told me one time. If you can't watch Game of Thrones, just watch Lord of the Rings for about 15 minutes and about 10 minutes of pornography, and you get Game of Thrones. Okay? It's the first show that ever showed the male genitalia ever in the history of television in America. But I'm thinking here, what leader, what pastor considers it a hobby to watch one of the shows that is one of the most, what we would call what? Sexually contented shows on television. And make a big deal and say that, and he's happy to say so. I'm going to tell you why he can do that. Because he is blind to his own self. He is. He is like Saul. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But then he immerses himself in filth and poison. And then on Sunday morning can get up and sing, come to the altar, but he probably doesn't ever go to the altar. You hear what I'm saying? He'll sing, come to the altar, but never go to it. You with me? I want to show you something here. Now this will get you. Look what Saul says, verse 25. Now therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Lord. Now look at that. He's not saying, hey, golly, man, I did wrong. What he's saying is, okay, that's okay. Let's get past that. What's important here is worship. Let's get up there and play the guitar. We got to get some songs on. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's not just admitting who you are. It's like, let's just go on and go through the motions. What's really important here is that everybody worships God. Everybody's doing this. It's not really about sin anyway. I'm going to tell you something. Probably 80% of worship on Sunday morning in the American Christian church is probably just worshiping out of a Saul's heart. We fill our minds with smut on Saturday night, and then we show up on Sunday morning and somehow feel good about our life because we spend 20 or 30 minutes singing things about God. Amen? Isn't that the truth? I mean, when a guy says he's into this stuff, I mean, last week I picked on, the Bachelor. They get to screw at the very end and decide who they like the best, right? But Christians love that. They do. They'll eat that up. They eat it up. Well, you can't do that. You can't do it yourself, but as long as you watch other people doing it, I guess that's okay, isn't it? Right? So look what happened here. I got to get through this. He said he wanted to go worship. But here's what Samuel said. He said, but Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord. The Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned around to go away, Saul seized the edge of his robe and tore it. And Samuel said, God's going to tear the kingdom away from you. And look at verse 30. Then Saul said, I have sinned. But look at this. I have sinned, yet honor me now before the elders. What is he saying? Look, okay, I messed up, but don't humiliate me before other people. I don't want to be humiliated. Keep it on the down low, right? Keep it on the down low. Look, I'm sorry I did that, but don't embarrass me. Still make people think I'm something that I'm not. Can I tell you something? That is the problem with Saul. He presents himself as something that he is not. He presents himself as though he is fully committed, all in, ready to obey the Lord, but he isn't that. He's always holding something back. He's always got something he's not willing to surrender. We sing the song last week, I surrender all. It's probably the greatest lie sometimes we sing in the church because it's always the bleating of the sheep and the lowing of the oxen that's there when God points his finger to it, right? Why haven't you surrendered that then? Amen? Now I want to end with this. There's several things I could say here. But I want to look at this one thing on desperation. So there's a few more interchanges there, and they're good, but I'm running out of time. I want to focus on this. So Samuel said this. Look, so they go get Agag, the king. They said, go get Agag. Samuel said, go get Agag. So here's what Agag said. So Agag came to him cautiously, and he said, well, surely the bitterness of death is past. So Agag's thinking everything's going to be okay. Samuel said, go get Agag. Agag's feeling pretty good right now. I think I'm going to make it. And look what Samuel said to him. Samuel said to Agag, as your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag to pieces before the Lord. Now I'm going to tell you something here. Agag represents our compromises, right? It represents our sin, the very thing we're unwilling to surrender. When Samuel brought the thing before him, the thing that God said, I'm going to reject you over. Now I want you to think about it. It said he hacked him to pieces. Tell me this, how many times with a sword, this is not a butcher cleaver, okay? This is a sword. How many times do you think it would take him, how many blows, 100, 150? Was Samuel before the people hacking Agag to pieces before them? And think about this. At the end, Agag is there. He represents that very thing that we're unwilling to surrender, that God takes very serious. And Samuel is sitting there or standing there, and blood is probably completely, he is basically drenched probably with the blood of Agag. You can't hack someone and not have his blood from head to tail, drenched the priestly garments, standing there with the sword. I want to tell you something. He is drenched in the blood of our compromises, is what he's drenched in, right? But he's not the only one, because it was another 1,000 years later that there was another one that was drenched because of the blood of your sin, and that's Christ himself, right? Christ himself, torn to pieces so that you and I could be liberated and free from the very thing that is devastating to our life. But because we're so blind to it, because we're so justified that you can watch anything you want to, you can go anywhere you want, you can listen to anything you want to listen to, you can partake of anything you want to partake. You're so blind to yourself that you're dying within and you don't even know it because you don't take it serious. You need to take the compromise and hack it to pieces. Amen? Hack it. It is your death that's after you. You pull the mask off. It is Satan himself destroying your life. Are you with me? Now I'm going to tell you something. Because, I'll just make this last point. In chapter 16 it says this, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit from the Lord troubled him. Now let me tell you something. You reject the Holy Spirit. You reject his conviction. God removes his spirit and gives you a spirit of a demonic influence that tortures your life. That's what he did. Because he rejected the Spirit of God and God's word from the Lord, not from the devil, from the Lord, he was given another spirit to trouble him and torture him. I'm going to tell you something. When I look at America today, the paranoia, the fears, the anxieties, the breakdown of emotions, the breakdown of the mind, is it possible it's because we have rejected the very clear commandments of the Lord? And now we are paying the price because we have lived for decades in compromise? Right? No wonder David said, please don't take your Holy Spirit from me. Because I think he saw in Saul that when the Spirit of God is taken from you, things go downhill from there, right? Said that Samuel went no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned over Saul, and the Lord regretted that he'd ever made him king over Israel. I'm going to tell you something, church. It's not out of wrath that God deals with us. It's out of his tremendous love. It really is. See, Samuel didn't cop an attitude. He grieved over the fact that Saul never could get it together. He grieved over the fact that Saul never would carry out the command of the Lord. He grieved over the fact that Saul lost his position as king. He wasn't glad for it. But I'm going to tell you something. When you see people's lives being devastated, and you see that their Christianity is just not even doing anything for them, of course it should grieve us, right? It should grieve us. It should grieve us if we hear that Christian leadership just bathes in this kind of stuff, because that's why revival tarries, probably, right? I mean, no wonder we pray for the sick and they're not healed. We try to cast out demons, we can't cast them out because we've rejected the command of the Lord, right? It was Oswald Chamberlain, I leave with this. It was Oswald Chamberlain that said this. And this is before he had a real encounter with God, but he was a Christian. He said, before I had a real encounter with God, he said, Christianity was nothing more than a fraud to me. Why do you say that? Because there was no power in it. There was no power. You were told you were going to get new living wine, and what you got was Boone's Farm, right? That's what you got. All you got was this cruddy t-shirt. But it's not because the gospel is not powerful enough. It's because men do not respond to the demands of the gospel that creates the problem in us, right? The gospel brings life. But it's our stubbornness, it's our rebellion, it's our hard-heartedness, it's our resistance to it. We don't take it serious. It reminds me of Ananias and Sapphira. They didn't even have to give it all. Listen to this. They didn't even have to give it all. They didn't have to give anything in Acts. But they presented themselves as though they did give it. They presented themselves that they were sacrificing. They were all in, totally committed. And God struck them dead there, not because they even had to do it. It's because the way they were trying to let other people think about them. They wanted others to think that they were better than they really were. I want to tell you something. That's probably the greater sin right there. You want people to think you're all in. You think they think you're all 100% committed, but you're not. And it's that presentation that really caused the demise of Ananias and Sapphira. Amen? See people around town. We know how they live. I mean, it's a small town, right? But come Sunday morning, blessed be the name of the Lord. No greater, less than blessed, right? Oh, victorious in Christ. You know what I'm saying? Sing another song. And we make a mockery of it all, don't we? And we wonder why. We wonder why. That we look at people's lives, they're not getting changed. Are you with me, church? I'm going to tell you something. The knife cuts very deep within me. I'm just going to tell you. When I read that when I'm reading it this morning, in my own mind, in my own spirit, I'm thinking, oh God, how can I even say it? How can I even say it? I've been a Saul most of my life. I've been an 80% guy most of my life. I've compromised. I haven't surrendered everything. There's things I know you told me you can't do that, but I did it anyway. You with me? Maybe that's just it. Maybe God wants to change the Saul's heart and turn it into the heart of David, one that is the heart after God's heart, one that is fully committed, not one that's sinless. I mean, David probably sinned more than Saul, but one thing David did have is he knew he had sinned. See, that's the difference. David knew adultery was wrong. David knew that killing was wrong. David knew those things were wrong. See, we don't know they're wrong. You can watch anything and you think it's okay. At least David thought, he knew it was wrong. He just admitted, I mean, sometimes that's just it. I know it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's the best. That's the better attitude, honestly, than to do it and act like there's nothing wrong with it. We all sin, amen? Salvation begins with conviction. I don't know how I got off. Let me finish. Salvation begins with a conviction of sin. I'm going to tell you something. If you don't weep over your sins, if you don't feel any guilt, if you don't feel any shame, if you don't feel any discipline from the Lord, if you've never knelt and cried over your rebellion and your stubbornness and things, then what I'm saying is this: you may have not actually experienced what God wants you to experience. Right? There's got to be something there that you realize that this is wrong. Amen? I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, 30 years, maybe one out of 100 weddings I've done, maybe one Christian couple actually didn't sleep around till they got married. Kids raised in church. You know what I'm saying? Maybe one. I don't even know if that one made it. I think one time, you know what? I told this one couple, I said, okay, I got to be proud of you that you survived till marriage. We got to tell you we didn't. You know what I'm saying? 20, 30 years ago, at least, we knew it was wrong, but we were going to do it anyway. Today, it's totally acceptable. Just move in with them and live together. You can sleep with whoever you want as long as you love people. You know what I'm saying? We don't even think about it anymore. You take other men's wives. You take other men's husbands. We don't think anything about it. We just come, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the God. The old praise song out there, right? Church, I don't just keep hounding it because I don't think someone's dealing with it, okay? I'm not talking to the people across the street there. There's plenty of darkness in our own lives. What concerns me is it doesn't move you enough to come to an altar and get it right. That's what concerns me. You don't have to convince me. I know you're not good. The cross tells me you're not good. If you were good, we wouldn't have needed a cross. Our young people are vipers just like our old people. You know what I'm saying? That's not the issue. The issue is, what does it take? What is it going to take for the Spirit of God to convince you that it's time to change? Right? Lord Jesus, that's what I'm asking.